Hey friends, welcome back. I have started a mini series here on my channel exploring the 12 different color seasons with seasonal color analysis, like breaking each of them down and doing the makeup looks for each of the seasons. So I've already done bright winter, and today we are going to be exploring dark autumn. This is just like my take on what I think the makeup look would be for each of the 12 seasons. I've done a lot of research about seasonal color analysis. Like, I've read a lot of articles, studied a lot of things, and also like experimented with a lot of different looks. And I'm just going to be sharing like different color recommendations for a dark autumn. So the first thing, we're going to go ahead and do our foundation first. And I'm using this Wet n Wild tinted hydrator. And I know, like, with it saying tinted, you think it's going to be like really light coverage, but this product actually has really good medium coverage. I'm using the shade Fair in this. With the dark autumn or like any of the autumn seasons, it's kind of recommended that you use either a matte foundation or a semi-matte, just because like a really illuminating foundation, a really dewy one, is going to create more contrast. But out of all of the autumn subseasons, dark autumn can handle more contrast than the others, just because the season is a bit more contrasted. And also, I will have some resources linked down below if you are like, what is this seasonal color analysis? Like, I don't understand the seasons, and it will break everything down. I don't really want to get completely into that in this video. This is just going to be me applying the makeup for a dark autumn. So, you know, if you need to familiarize yourself, just go check out those articles. I'll have linked down below in the description box. And I'll also have all the products that I'm using today listed and linked down there if you need to recall like what I used. This foundation is really nice. Like, you can get a light coverage or a medium coverage out of it. It's very long wearing for it being just like a tinted hydrator. And this is one of my most affordable foundations from my makeup collection. I know that this video is more so about like the autumn or the dark autumn. And that's another thing too. Like, sometimes resources will call it a dark autumn, some will call it a deep autumn. So I might use that term interchangeably in this video just because they, you know, seasonal color analysis kind of uses it interchangeably as well. I also have not been professionally draped yet. So I really don't know what my color season is, but I think this foundation is really good for any of the autumn seasons just because it's not too overly glowy, but it's not too overly matte. I think it's just a good right there in the middle, just natural skin finish foundation. And then for the concealer, I'm just using the e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer. This is in the shade Fair Beige. And I'm just going to do a few little dots of that. This is a bit more of like a warm peachy kind of undertoned concealer. This has really great coverage, great staying power, and since it is like more of a hydrating concealer, it has a little bit of like a glow. It's also really hydrating on the under eyes. So like if you have dry under eyes, I think this is really good. The key is to just not apply too much because it is a very thick concealer. And I'm probably just going to kind of speed through this stuff because I know that you're probably here to know like what blushes to use and like eyeshadows and lip colors, because that's the most important thing when it comes to the color seasonal analysis stuff. So I'm just using the L'Oreal Infallible Blurfection for my under eye setting, and I've been loving this as an under eye setting powder. Like, it just does such a great job of setting the under eyes, blurring that area, and just brightening. Like, I don't know if you can see the difference between the two eyes there, but this product is so good. This is in the shade Translucent. And then I'm just setting this foundation with the Rimmel Stay Matte Powder. And this is going to tone down some of that glowiness, but I will use a setting spray at the end to just lock everything on, and that will add a little bit of that natural finish back to the overall makeup look. So I did my eyebrows off camera and I just used the Maybelline Build-A-Brow to just fill in any sparse areas. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to some of the more exciting things. So I'm gonna prime my eyelids with this Wet n Wild eyeshadow primer. I always prime my eyelids before doing my eyeshadow just to ensure it's going to last all day. So just a little bit there. And then I'm just gonna go in with a brush to just brush that all over from like the lash line all the way up to the brow bone. And then I'm gonna let that kind of dry down on the eyelids for just a little bit. Okay, so I pulled out a couple of different eyeshadow palettes that I would recommend for a dark autumn. And most of these are drugstore recommendations, but this little palette here from e.l.f., this is their bite-sized eyeshadow palette in Berry Bad. I think this is really beautiful for either like a true autumn or a dark autumn. And honestly, like a soft autumn could use this as well, just maybe, you know, use it a little bit more lightly. Also the e.l.f. bite-sized palette in Pumpkin Pie. This is another beautiful warm toned eyeshadow palette. I'll also link some of my other videos down below in the description box where I've done in-depth tutorials on these palettes that I'm sharing with you guys today, if you would like to see more looks with them. The Wet n Wild Always Blushing is another great palette for a deep autumn. I think any of the autumn sub-seasons could use this. Just has a lot of really great berry and warm toned bronzy colors in here. This is one of my all-time favorite palettes. And also the Natasha Denona Retro palette. I know like online, this kind of, they say this is more of like a dark winter palette. And I think like dark winter could use this, but there's a lot of like warmer, like terracotta type of colors in here that like this color here or that color right there, this one over here, that are more warm toned that I feel like is more suited for an autumn season. But I just think the berry tones in here are beautiful for like dark autumn. You can get like a lot of contrast in this palette, which, you know, dark autumns are more of like a high contrast season compared to the other autumn seasons, like I was telling you guys. So I was debating on like what palette I wanted to use today for this look. And I'm gonna do something a little bit more simple that could be like an everyday eyeshadow look. That's kind of like my goal with these different seasonal color analysis like breakdowns that I do. I want to do a look that you could wear day to day, like could be like your everyday look. So I think I'm going to use the bite-sized eyeshadow palette from Wet n Wild in Berry Bad. I just think that this is a beautiful little everyday palette for a dark autumn. And I'll also share some different blush recommendations and also lipsticks. So I'm going to be using this Pro Fusion eyeshadow brush. This is their Firm Blending Eyeshadow ES2. And I'm first going to go in with the shade here. And I'm just going to blend this into the crease. So this is just like a warmer, like a warm mauve, or like a more muted mauvey berry shade. This is completely matte. And I love these Profusion eyeshadow brushes. They come in a set of 3. You can get them at Walmart, like walmart.com is where I bought these eyeshadow brushes. I'm going to be using a few of them from that set today. Then I'm just going to be taking this pointed pencil brush. It's a little bit dirty, but this is the Sigma Pencil E30. And I'm going to take some more of that color and just run it here on the lower lash line, just connecting it with the crease shade. And you could always just like do this look, like you don't have to do all the steps I'm doing with this look. Like if you wanted a more like light everyday look, you could just use this shade and maybe one of the shimmers on the lid and not do like a smokier outer V color. But I want to do something like slightly a little bit more dramatic, just because with a deep autumn, you can get away with like wearing a little bit more of a smokier eye look day to day, and it doesn't look too much just because you have so much contrast going on with your eyes and hair and eyebrows. Okay, then I'm taking the flat, precise eyeshadow brush. This is the ES7 from that Profusion little set. And I'm going to go in with the darkest matte warm brown. Just getting that color on that brush. And I'm going to pat that here on like the last little bit of the eyelid. And then I'm going to go in with a blending brush and kind of blend this up into the outer V, just to kind of make it a little bit more smoky. And then I'm going to go back with that pencil brush with just a little bit of that dark brown. Tap off the excess and I'm going to run just a little bit of it like right here. But if you are a dark autumn and you're watching this, let us know like what are some of your favorite colored products, like eyeshadows, blush, lip colors. I think this would be like a great resource for people to check out the comments and see like what people use and recommend if you are a deep autumn. I'm just going to be using this small pointed eyeshadow brush, the ES6 from that set, that Profusion brush set. And I'm going to get a little bit more of that dark brown on the tip of this. And I'm going to pull that shade up this way. We're going to kind of do like a little bit of a V shape here. So up and then take it over. And this is just going to deepen up the outer V. And I'm just going to use little circular motions to blend that darker shade out and just shape this area out. Okay, and then I'm just going to go back with that original shade that we used in the crease, and I'm just going to go back with that same blending brush that I used at the beginning and just go around the edge, making sure things are blended really well. I've got like one eyebrow hair that this gel didn't hold down. Okay, and then with this palette, with the two berry shades here, this one is a little bit more warm toned than the one over here. It's a little bit more cool toned. So like I'm just gonna swatch so you can see here. But really you could get away with either one of those, but see, like as you can tell there, this one is a bit more warm toned than this other berry shade. Okay, so I'm gonna flip this flat shadery brush over to the side that's a little bit more clean. And I'm gonna go in with that warmer shade. Just pack it on the brush there. Tap off the excess. And then I'm just gonna put this all over the front part of the lid and also kind of tap it around and blend it there with that darker color. And then I'm gonna take the Wet n Wild Always Blushing in this matte cream shade in this palette, just because that little e.l.f. Bite Size palette doesn't have a good highlight shade for the brow bone. And I'm just gonna brush this here. And I'm also gonna use a shade from another palette to highlight the inner, like this little inner corner area. That's just kind of like personal preference for me. I do like to have a bright inner corner. Okay, so like I said, this is optional, but I just like this personally on me. I'm gonna use the Wet n Wild Color Icon palettes in Walking on Eggshells in this the highlight shade. And I'm gonna take that same little angled brush. I got this out of a e.l.f. brush set. And I'm just gonna pop this right here in the inner corner. I just think it opens up the eyes really nice. I don't know, it just makes the eyeshadow look more complete to me. With a dark autumn, it's recommended that like for your liners that you use something a little softer than black, like a dark brown is more recommended. I'm going to be using the Physicians Formula Eye Booster Pen in deep brown to just do a little bit of liner. You could also use like a burgundy or a green, like a warm green. Not that you would want to do a warm green with this eye look, but just like in general, like a dark autumn. Like those are like some recommended eyeliner colors. You basically just want to, you know, look at the colors that are recommended for your season and go with like the darkest ones to use for like your liner. So I'm not necessarily doing a wing, but I'm kind of pulling that little last bit of the area up there in the corner. So that just adds a little bit more contrast to the look there. And I'll do the mascara here at the end after I mist my face with my makeup setting spray. I always like to do my mascara after that, just so, you know, my eyelashes don't fall down from the setting spray. So now we're going to move on to the rest of the face. And when it comes to any of the autumn seasons, it's highly recommended to use bronzer to warm up the face. This is like one of the seasons that shine in using bronzers. And my skin is pretty fair, so I can't, at least in the winter and spring, my skin tone's really fair. So I'm going to use a bronzer that is suited for my skin. That's what you should do, no matter like what if you're in autumn, no matter what your autumn subseason. You know, when you think a deep autumn, you think like, I need to use like a deep dark bronzer, but maybe if you're really fair, because you could have a range of skin tones in each of the subseasons, just get a bronzer that's more suited for you. So this bronzer from Physicians Formula, this is just their Butter Bronzer in the shade Bronzer. I think this is one of my very favorite bronzers to use. I have several in my makeup collection that I really like, and I think this is such a great bronzer. So I'm just going to use that, and I'm going to apply this with the Sigma Large Powder Brush. This is the F30. And the key with like the bronzer is you want it to be well blended and not have like any harsh lines or anything like that. So I'm just putting that here. But yeah, and any of the autumn seasons just looks so good with like bronzer. Really warms up the complexion. And I might actually take just a little bit of this bronzer and pop this in like the top part of my crease. Like I just feel like I want a slightly like warmer color there. Then for the blush, like two of my, I think are such beautiful blushes for an autumn, especially a dark autumn. The Wet n Wild Mellow Wine and Wet n Wild Naked Brown. I think both of these shades are gorgeous. So I'm going to swatch these so you can see. So this is Naked Brown. This is Mellow Wine. So I love both of these blush colors. Highly recommend for any of the autumn subseasons. I think today in this look, I am going to use Mellow Wine. This is one of my favorite go-to blushes. I mean, Wet n Wild really makes some amazing blushes for the price. You just can't beat it. And I'm just applying this with this Sigma F40. This blush just pairs so nice with that eyeshadow palette. And if you get a little too heavy-handed, you can always go back with your sponge, tap it out. According to Google, dark autumns should not wear a highlighter because it clashes with like their deeper undertones or something like that. But honestly, I love a highlight, and I'm gonna share one with you guys that could be well suited for a dark autumn. Like, this isn't too overly crazy shimmery, but I think the tone of this is really good for any autumn season. So this is the Essence Pure Nude Baked Sunlighter, and it's a gorgeous golden highlight. So as you can see there, and it looks really natural on the skin. Like, it doesn't look too crazy or anything. So, you know, it's not like it's super highlighted and taking away from the look. It just adds a nice glow. I don't know, like a lot of times I just don't feel like my makeup looks are complete without a highlight. So that's what that looks like there. And I just think a nice golden highlight looks beautiful on an autumn. Okay, and then before I do the lips and lashes, we're gonna set with a makeup setting spray, and I'm using the Urban Decay All Nighter. This is just my very favorite setting spray. I mean, I have others in my collection that I really like, but this one, if you really want your makeup to last well, this one is so good. And this is just gonna also tone down any powdery, you know, any powders on the face. Now I'm just gonna let that dry down before I do the mascara. Okay, so I'm just gonna curl my lashes up before applying my mascara. And just like the eyeliner, it's recommended to use like a black brown or like a dark brown mascara, but I'm gonna use black today. I just think that like with a darker eye look, I think that a dark autumn can pull off black mascara. So, you know, personal preference, but Google and other articles recommend to use a dark brown mascara instead of black. So I'm just using the Maybelline Lash Sensational Mascara. This is one of my all-time favorites. It does a great job of giving fullness and length. It doesn't smudge throughout the day or flake, so it's an amazing mascara, one of my all-time favorites. Okay, I'm gonna share a few different lipstick options for a dark autumn, and honestly, I have so many that I would recommend, but I'm just gonna try to narrow this down to about like 3 different shades. I think a classic, there was like some fuzz floating around, but a classic lipstick color for any of the autumn subseasons is this Revlon lipstick in Rum Raisin. And I'm just gonna put this on. I think this is a good nude. But I think this is a beautiful, like, darker nude shade. Looks so pretty. It's just like a warm mauve color. So this is just a classic lipstick color for a dark autumn or any of the other autumn subseasons. I love this one. I want to share like one that's even lighter than this that I think is also works well. This is one of the Maybelline Superstay Vinyl Inks. I'm going to take this color off. And actually, before I show this one, I might show like 2 other darker ones. I guess I'll show 4 lipstick colors today. But I'll do the darker ones first because I'm going to wear probably the lighter one today. So this shade here is another Revlon lipstick in the color Rumberry. This is a very dark brown, which is gorgeous on a dark autumn. I think that actually looks really gorgeous with this makeup. It is like a more dramatic and intense look, so probably not a look I'm gonna wear today. Today is actually Easter Sunday, so this definitely isn't like necessarily an Easter look, but I do think for a dark autumn, like dramatic look, this is perfect. So I really love this color in Rumberry. I think both of those shades are gorgeous. And then these last two that I'm going to share are more wearable, everyday lipstick colors. So the classic Clinique Black Honey Almost Lipstick is just the perfect everyday lip color for any of the autumns. It's kind of like Rumberry, but more wearable day-to-day color, just because it's more sheer. So as you can see there, compared to Rumberry, it's just like a lighter version of that. So I think that looks really pretty with this eye look. And this lipstick is so comfortable. Like another like affordable option to this, if you didn't want to purchase this, is, let me see here, this CoverGirl Clean Fresh Lip Balm in Bliss You Berry. It's very similar to Clinique Black Honey. Might be just like a little bit more of a reddish than brown, but it's very comparable to that. So if you wanted a more affordable option, it's like I said, I was going to recommend 3, and now we're like 4 or 5 shades in. And then this is the color that I'm going to wear today. This is one of the Maybelline Superstay Vinyl Inks in the shade Peppy. I think this is a good everyday, more like nude color. This shade would also be really beautiful for a soft autumn. And I'll just swatch Peppy with some of the other lip colors that I've swatched for you guys so you can see the difference here. This one is like a little bit more pink compared to the others, but it's a warm pink. So there is Peppy there. So I'll have all these lip colors linked down below, but I think any of these shades are gorgeous on really any of the autumn seasons, but especially dark autumn. If you are a dark, deep autumn, let us know, like, what are some of your favorite colored products, like your favorite eyeshadow palettes, blush colors, lip colors. Let us know in the comments. I definitely want to do the other autumn subseasons like warm or true autumn, soft autumn, and then of course I want to get into summer and spring season and also finish the rest of the winter, since this is just the second video I've done in the series. So I hope that you guys have a great day. I hope that you all have a happy Easter. Like I said, I'm filming this on Easter Sunday, but I hope that you all have a great Easter celebrating with your family, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.